Welcome back to our second session where we're talking about how to take AI agent-based use cases from POC to production in minutes. Now, if you do a quick recap on the first session, we were talking about a specific use case where you're trying to actually phone in and book a holiday to Dubai to watch the Burj Khalifa fireworks on New Year's Eve. So you're phoning into your regular travel agent. You're speaking to them, you say, I need this flight, I want these hotels. So they're speaking to the colleagues to try and get you the best deal that they possibly can. They're on the systems, accessing all the flight data, all the hotels that are available. And then they're feeding that back to you so you can actually book your holiday and you can get the preferences that you want, the seating that you want, the hotel, is it 4-star, 5-star, all of that kind of stuff. Now, what would happen if we switched out the travel agent and their team into AI-based agents? What are the key considerations and how can we scale that from POC to production in a short space of time? Okay, so let's break this down. We're going to take a single AI agent and I'm going to show you how you can actually build this out and then deploy it on AgentCore at scale, securely, with observability, with memory, with tools. Let's get going. So the first thing you need to consider is model choice. So there's a large number of modules available, including the Amazon Bedrock models, including models from OpenAI, via the OpenAI SDKs, for example, and even Google Gemini's models. So there's no restriction on model choice to be that reasoning engine for your agent. Secondly, what type of frameworks can we actually build our agents in? So we can actually build them in the Strands SDK, for example. We can actually utilize things like Crew AI, LangGraph. Again, framework is fully flexible for you to choose, so any framework is supported. So let me just drop in Strands right here. So this is Strands. The Strands SDK is going to be tightly integrated with AWS services across the board, so you can actually get up and running much more quicker, access all the different components of AgentCore in a much more seamless way. But again, Crew AI is supported, LangGraph, any framework is supported, just like any model is pretty much supported as well. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so this then becomes our AgentCore runtime. So this is where we can actually deploy our agents, runtime, securely and at scale, taking us from POC to production in minutes. And we're going to elaborate on each of these sections that we discuss in individual videos and sessions going forward. But I just want to summarize what AgentCore gives you and what's available to you to make sure you can get those solutions and AI agentic-based use cases into production as quickly as possible and with all the right safeguards and boundaries and perimeters in place. So a couple of key considerations for our agent that we're building here is the instructions or the prompts. So let's drop that in here. So we'll just call it prompt. What's the purpose of the agent? What is the agent's instructions? How about things like tools available to the agent, right? So these are all key considerations and things like context. And we'll talk about context next as we go forward. So context is super important, things like memory. Okay, so let's elaborate a bit more on context. So this is where AgentCore memory comes into play. Remember, we were talking about short-term memory, long-term memory, and things like, shared preferences. Where do I prefer to sit on a flight? Aisle seat, window seat? Is it, do I want to always go business class? And even recently at AWS reInvent, episodic memory as part of AgentCore memory was introduced, which means in what context was that memory actually created? Was I traveling solo? So do I only like to go business class when I'm solo? Maybe I'm traveling with my family now, so my requirements or my preferences are slightly different because I need to sit with my partner or my kids or something like that. So maybe I need to have not an aisle seat or a window seat or a business class seat. Maybe I need to have a seat in the middle, right? Make sure the kids don't fight. So episodic memory now comes into play. All of these things, all of these different types of memory, and we're going to elaborate on AgentCore memory in a future session, all help give our AI agent context, and context is key in providing the right answer back to you as a user and me as a holiday maker to ensure I get what I'm looking for. Okay, so quick summary. you have model choice, you have SDK or framework choice. We're talking Strands, Crew AI, LangGraph, and then with AgentCore runtime, we can obviously deploy obviously at scale securely. Key considerations are the instructions or the prompts, the tools available, the context, which comes from essentially AgentCore memory. So let's just take an example. You have your application up here, and you are now calling into your agent to get a job done. So we just call this app. We'll just say this is our app, like this. So that can then call into your agent that's running on AgentCore runtime. How about actually communicating with other agents? Remember, we've got 3 agents in this scenario, and there could be hundreds of agents in a scenario or a use case. But then that's where things like the agent-to-agent protocol comes into play. So we're just going to drop that in here. So we've got supporting A to A again. So AgentCore supports A to A, so agent-to-agent protocol, which means this agent that we're building using this model, this framework, can actually communicate with other agents using the agent-to-agent protocol, and it can obviously communicate, the app can actually communicate directly with the agent if needed, if that's the scenario that you're building out. But those are some key considerations to bring into account. But again, flexibility is key here with the frameworks, and then some of these core requirements to make this agent function correctly. Okay, let's go on to our next core requirement, and this is security. So AgentCore identity is going to be key in ensuring, let me just drop this in here first, ensuring our agent has access to what it needs and doesn't have access to what it doesn't need. Remember, we're talking about security of least privilege. So if we just say, let's use a different color for this. So we're going to say our agent has AgentCore identity to help manage our authorization and authentication, for example. So authentication, authorization. Think about this, right? You're communicating with the agent's communicating with other agents, maybe using A to A. Then the agents are communicating with tools, which we'll talk about in a minute. How are all of these permissions and authorizations and authentications being managed from a single point? And that's where AgentCore identity comes in. The other consideration, or the recent announcement, is around AgentCore policy, meaning you can actually wrap that agent with policy and boundaries to give it a secure perimeter to operate within, to ensure it does not exceed what you want it to do, right? So you want it to make sure that it stays within its boundaries and it doesn't reach out to do things that it's not supposed to be doing. And we're going to be deep diving this a bit more in a future video. So this is AgentCore policy that was recently announced at reInvent. So that's security taken care of. We've gone through the scalability side of things. How about tools? So tools is going to be a key requirement. If you remember in our previous use case, our travel agent or our hotel specialist was accessing the hotel booking system. The flight specialist was looking at all the flights available on the flight booking system. These are all tools. And how do we make them available at scale for our agents to use? And that's where things like the Amazon Bedrock AgentCore gateway comes into play. So we're just going to drop gateway in here. And this is a super cool tool or service available to you, or a feature. And it's absolutely essential in actually deploying agentic-based AI systems that need access to potentially hundreds and thousands of tools. So for example, the AgentCore gateway can actually turn all your APIs and expose them as MCP. So let's actually drop MCP in here. It can actually, let's see if I can draw this correctly. So MCP servers, it can expose them as MCP servers, but it can also add other MCP servers externally and so on, and give your agent that single point of access to those tools or services via the AgentCore gateway. It can even allow you to do a semantic search. Now imagine if you've got thousands of tools, hundreds of tools available. The AgentCore gateway allows you to do a semantic search and returns you with the tools that it thinks are going to be the most useful for you. Instead of giving you 1,000 tools back or hundreds of tools back, you can actually get the tools that make sense based on that semantic search. Again, we will deep dive that as we go forward. So let's also just drop in a couple of arrows to say, you know, all of these things, all of these tools depend on policies and identity, AgentCore identity as part of their security framework. Cool. So we've got tools taken care of. There are a couple of other tools that are available for you via AgentCore. So let's drop those in. So we have the AgentCore browser. And this is for things like, you know, browser interactions, legacy applications, and so on. You also have code interpreter. So let's say your agent needs to generate code and execute it securely. So code, let's see if we can get this in the box. Code in, we'll just put that down. So code interpreter is key. Again, these are all the tools available for you. I'm just going to drop this in here like this. There you go. That are key to ensuring that our AI agent is running correctly. We're obviously using runtime, but also has access to the tools and the services it needs to get the job done. Okay. Now, finally, the final few things I just want to mention here are around how do we know what our agent is actually doing? How do we know it's behaving correctly? How do we monitor? How do we observe? How do we understand the costs associated with running this agent using, you know, all of our tools? Where is the cost coming from and the access coming from? And, you know, does it have permissions? Does it have all the right requirements it needs to get things done? And that's where AgentCore Observability, which spans all of this, comes into play. So we'll just drop this in here. We'll just call this Observability. And this is going to be key to any agentic-based AI use case that you're running with multiple agents, hundreds of agents, thousands of tools. How do you observe what is happening? How can you audit what the agent is doing over a period of time and ensure it's behaving within the parameters it's expected to? AgentCore Observability is going to be key. And these are, remember, we're talking about key considerations for taking this to production. You might not be as bothered if it's a POC, but when it comes to production, scalability, security, tools, observability is going to be key. Now, coupled with observability, how can we actually evaluate our agents? How do we know that they're performing up to the right standards? And this is what was recently announced at reInvent. This is where evaluation comes into play. So let's drop that in as well. And again, that's across the board: AgentCore evaluation, automated evaluation in terms of understanding the success and accuracy of what the agent is supposed to be doing. Just drop that in as a V. And things like observability, obviously you'll be using Amazon CloudWatch, using the Open Telemetry framework. So we'll just put that in here so just so you know. But again, this is all about getting your agents from POC to production. So security is key, observability is key, memory is going to be important, scalability is going to be key. So what we're going to be doing in the next session is we're going to be looking at runtime in more detail. We're going to be looking at memory in more detail in a separate session. We're going to be looking at identity and policy in a separate session. We're going to be looking at our tools in a separate session, and observability in future sessions. Make sure you tune in. Thanks for watching. Sub the channel, like the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.